Good morning, I'm Paolo del Rosario and welcome to Weather HQ. Today's headlines. The Asian Development Bank approves a $500 million loan to support the country's efforts to deal with climate change. The multilateral lender says it will help accelerate reforms and put sectors like agriculture, natural resources, energy, and transport on a climate-resilient and low-carbon path. ACT-CIS Party List Representative Erwin Tulfo wants farmers invited in the House of Representatives' next hearing on the alleged manipulation of food prices, particularly rice. The lawmaker questioned why rice prices remained high from 50 to 63 pesos per kilo despite the lowering of tariffs on imported rice. What's next after the COP29 Climate Summit in Azerbaijan? I'll speak with the Center for Energy, Ecology, and Development later on in the show. And humanitarian situation worsens in Gaza Strip as winter approaches and rainfall increases. The details on global weather. Let's take a look at the local weather today in today's forecast. Pagasa says the northeast monsoon and the intertropical convergence zone are still affecting the country. Cagayan Valley and Cordillera Administrative Region will have cloudy skies and with rains due to the northeast monsoon affecting the northern Luzon. As you can see, the northeast monsoon coming in from this area affecting the extreme northern Luzon. Now, residents are advised to take precautionary measures as flash floods or landslides are possible due to moderate to at times heavy rains. Now, for the Ilocos region, residents should expect partly cloudy skies with isolated light rains rather. Now, the ITCZ, on the other hand, will be affecting the south and will continue to bring cloudy skies with scattered rains and thunderstorms in the Caraga, Davao region, Soxargen, Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi. So just to see where the ITCZ is coming from, these are the areas that it affects. Now, for those living in flood-prone areas, please prepare because these rains may cause possible flash floods or landslides. For the rest of the country, it will be partly cloudy to cloudy skies with chances of isolated rain showers or thunderstorms. So, apart from the extreme north and the south of the country, you can expect that sort of weather. Now, as for our sea conditions for today, the gale warning is up on the coastal waters of Batanes, the northern coast of Cagayan, including the Babuyan Islands, and the northern coast of Ilocos Norte. So these areas in particular. Now, seafarers in these areas are advised not to venture out to sea as you will experience rough to very rough sea conditions with possible wave heights of up to 4.5 meters due to the northeast monsoon. As you can see here, the affected provinces, Batanes, Cagayan, and Ilocos Norte. Now, let's take a look at the weather conditions over in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Starting off in Luzon. Let's go to Tuguegarao in particular and Aurora because cloudy skies with high chances of rain showers are possible until today due to the northeast monsoon. So you can expect a bit of wet weather here in Tuguegarao and in Aurora. Now, in most parts of the region, generally fair weather is expected, particularly in Lawag, Baguio, Metro Manila, Tagaytay, Legazpi, right over there. That's where Legazpi is. Legazpi and, of course, Puerto Princesa right over here. So Baguio is still the coolest, no surprise, with temperatures around 16 to 23 degrees, while Tagaytay is the lowest temperature, but it may reach up to 30 degrees Celsius. Well, lowest temperature outside of Baguio. Now, in Alawag and in Metro Manila, as well as Legazpi, you're going to see highs of around 32 degrees possible, 32 degrees, and while in Puerto Princesa, you can reach up to 33 degrees Celsius. So make sure you are prepared for the heat that you'll experience. Moving on to Visayas, the whole region will continue to experience warm and humid weather. Temperatures in Bacolod, Iloilo, and Tacloban may reach up to 32 degrees Celsius, while in Cebu, Metro Cebu, you're going to have highs of around 31 degrees Celsius. So make sure you hydrate and protect yourselves from the heat. Moving down south, what should we expect in the coming days with the weather there, with the ITCZ in particular? We're going to find out in just a bit. But as you can see here, Metro Davao, General Santos City, Cagayan de Oro, and Zamboanga having similar weather conditions. Or rather, General Santos and Butuan City are the two cities affected by the ITCZ, along with Metro Davao experiencing wet weather. Cagayan de Oro, a bit of a different weather condition there. Sunnier weather from Cagayan de Oro. Otherwise, Mindanao affected by the ITCZ. Now, moving on, let's take a look at the 3-day weather forecast, starting off with Puerto Princesa. Now, as you can see here, we should see highs of 33 degrees Celsius on Saturday. So for those in that area in Puerto Princesa, do prepare for the weather to get hotter as the days go by. As you can see here, Thursday and Friday, similar weather conditions, and Saturday, possibly, potentially, just a degree hotter. Moving on to Bacolod, for the City of Smiles, Bacolod, generally fair weather conditions are expected until Saturday. Residents will continue to experience hot and humid weather until Saturday. Temperatures starting tomorrow around 26 to 32 degrees Celsius. On Saturday, might be a bit colder here because of the fact that we are expecting a bit of rain on Saturday. So 25 degrees Celsius the low here, but the high still being at 32 degrees Celsius. Over or down in Cagayan de Oro, residents will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies for the next 3 days, despite the ITCZ affecting Mindanao. Temperatures range from 25 to 33 degrees on Thursday, and Friday you'll have 26 to 32 degrees on Saturday. As you can see, the temperature getting a bit hotter over on Saturday, but in general around that range, 25 to 33 degrees Celsius. So if you're going to go out, make sure you bring your umbrellas and protect yourself from the heat and of course the occasional rain that would happen here and there. What's next after COP29 Climate Summit in Azerbaijan? We'll have the Center for Energy, Ecology and Development after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. The COP29 Climate Summit in Azerbaijan concluded with many developing countries disappointed on the measly $300 billion climate finance agreed with developed countries, as opposed to the desired $1.3 trillion grants being asked for by those affected by the climate crisis. Joining us now via Zoom is the Deputy Head for Research and Policy of the Center for Energy, Ecology and Development, Ivan Andres. Magandang umaga. Thank you very much for joining us, Ivan.
Good morning. Thank you for having our organization.
Ivan, talking about your organization, could you walk us through the events that you participated in, that you were all part of during the summit?
Gladly. SEED actually hosted and participated in several side events at COP29. These side events dwelled into the Southeast Asia perspectives on the region's vulnerability on fossil fuels expansion, at the same time, opportunity for renewable energy, and particularly in biodiversity hotspots. One particular side event or major event that we participated in was the launch of our Southeast Asia coal, gas, and renewable energy landscape paper. So this is an annual report that we released this year. We launched it, and the report actually dives into the continued expansion of both coal and gas in Southeast Asia, alongside the increasing build-out of renewable energy in the region. Interestingly, despite the region's vulnerability to climate change and its rich renewable energy potential, unfortunately, massive coal and gas expansion still exists in Southeast Asia. And behind that expansion is actually the global north. Financial institutions that are having significant enablers for Southeast Asian developers and banks heavily involved in fossil fuel expansion.
So what are the recommendations that you felt came out of COP29, the key takeaways and outcomes from this particular events? Because we are seeing, as you mentioned, the insights that you mentioned a while ago of the global north financial institutions actually helping promote coal here in the region, and of course the big gap between the asked grants of $1.3 trillion to the actually granted finance agreement, which was $300 billion of climate finance. So what are your key takeaways from this particular summit?
As you've mentioned, Many countries and nations and organizations are quite disappointed with the outcome of COP29. COP29 had an initial text reflecting a goal of a measly 250 billion annually. SEED, actually together with 300 civil society groups on the ground at COP29, actually wrote to the parties in G77 and China, urging them to actually reject the latest text and push for that 1.3 trillion dollar goal instead, in grants, not loans from developed countries. The outcome is actually directed towards addressing the climate if we read the text on paper, but we believe that it's too little and too late at this point. The message from the wealthy nations is clear that the profits from fossil fuels matter more than the vulnerable nations, vulnerable communities at the forefront of these climate disasters. The goal set was supposed to deliver justice, but the wealthy countries, the global north countries, have failed to deliver that funding appropriate at COP29. Developing nations must be proactive actually to pay their climate debt and phase out fossil fuels at this point.
You mentioned climate justice being probably not done in COP29. Is that, do you feel, going to be one of the biggest issues still in the next climate summit in Brazil?
Definitely. COP29 has failed in the world's most vulnerable. The Philippines, for that matter, recently faced six consecutive storms, resulting in tragic loss of 170 lives. Other nations are also facing the impacts of climate disasters. The climate crisis will be an issue still at the next COP. And if this is not proof enough that money is needed now to be mobilized to address the climate crisis, then what must we endure more at this time? Without concrete funding commitments, we believe that the upcoming loss and damage meeting in the Philippines risks turning futile. And how can we adapt with empty pockets, and how to survive while the fossil fuels continue to choke the planet? So definitely, at the next COP, this is an issue that will still be alive, and demands would still be the same and far stronger as we near that climate target.
Well, you mentioned the difficulty it is trying to convince the richer economies, richer nations to move away from fossil fuels, and how that is impacting the region. Here in the Philippines in particular, we've actually, one of the projects recently launched by the government and from a few private organizations is the solar farm, or rather the solar power specific production to actually service millions of Filipinos here. Do you feel like efforts like that might actually help address whatever issues, or at least send a message to those richer nations with regard to their actual investment in renewable energy? And of course, how is SEED pushing for projects like that?
Definitely, efforts and projects aligned to just transition, as well as the 1.5 climate goal, is very much welcome, especially for countries such as the Philippines. When, in contrast to powerful nations, nations such as the Philippines actually have very little contribution to global emissions. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do our part. That countries such as the Philippines, as well as other nations in Southeast Asia and developing countries, shouldn't do our part. In fact, this strongly sends a signal to powerful nations that if developing nations such as ours, could develop these projects at a rapid pace and with a direct prerogative, then these nations should also do the same, especially considering that they are actually the main drivers to the emissions, to global emissions. SEED, our organization, has a Likas Kaya Energia program, actually directed towards establishing or highlighting, showcasing renewable energy potential across the country in across the Philippines.
Yeah.
In fact, towards the end of the year, we intend to establish another renewable energy project, this time in Mindoro, showcasing how renewable energy could actually answer the perennial issues attributed to our fossil fuel dominated power sector. It's very interesting how areas in the Philippines are actually so vulnerable to energy insecurity, high electricity rates, while the very same areas actually have tremendous renewable energy potential. So we want to showcase that potential through these renewable energy projects, and at the same time, drive the movement or drive the efforts across other stakeholders, across renewable energy developers, across energy companies, to also push and develop more renewable energy to address these issues in the power sector.
Well, the Asian Development Bank just recently approved the $500 million loan for the country's climate efforts. What are your thoughts on that particular loan from the ADB?
Definitely, we are definitely open to more of this funding towards renewable energy. However, this should be in the form of grants and not loans for developed countries. Also, we also urge, and we also been engaging banks to stop the financing for fossil fuels at the same time. A lot of banks and companies try to offset their financing on fossil fuels with financing on renewable energy. However, we do think that it takes more than just investing in renewable energy, but also fully divesting from these fossil fuels.
Ivan, for those who want to support Seed's advocacies, how can they reach out to you? How can they support your endeavors?
Thank you. Seed can be found in all the major social media platforms. We also have a website, Seed Philippines. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram.
Thank you so much, Ivan. That is the Deputy Head for Research and Policy of the Center for Energy, Ecology, and Development, Ivan Andres. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Up next, at least 20 people are killed in Indonesia after heavy rains, flooding, and landslides in northern Sumatra. That when we return here on Weather HQ. Welcome back. This is Weather HQ. Let's take a look at the global weather. As winter approaches and rainfall increases in the Gaza Strip, the humanitarian situation worsens. The United Nations warns that Israeli restrictions on aid may leave Gazans without adequate assistance for up to 2 years. The UN Relief and Works Agency stated that the recent rains have already put 500,000 people at risk of flooding, predicting that conditions will deteriorate further. Its spokesperson, Louise Waterridge, highlighted that frequent winter rains will exacerbate sewage issues due to damaged infrastructure from bombardments, while cold weather will worsen health problems among the malnourished population. Many Gazans urgently need basic supplies like mattresses and blankets, but aid delivery is insufficient. Estimates indicate it could take 2 years to meet their needs. Waterridge expressed deep concern for families suffering without proper shelter or clothing. Rescue workers in western Indonesia are using heavy equipment to search for victims of recent floodings and landslides that have claimed at least 20 lives. This according to the National Disaster Agency. Heavy rain began on Saturday, causing deadly floods and landslides across 4 districts in northern Sumatra. In North Sumatra, 5 bodies of missing individuals were found under mud and debris, while a total of 10 fatalities have been reported in Caro district due to landslides. In Delhi Serdang district, 4 bodies have been found with 2 individuals still missing. Communication has been difficult due to power outages and lack of cell phone reception, complicating rescue efforts. Following further searches, the death toll was revised to 20, with significant casualties reported in South Tapanuli, Padang Lawas, and Delhi Serdang. The search for survivors resumed Monday after operations had been halted due to poor weather. And that's Weather HQ for today. Join me again tomorrow, whatever the weather, here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Have a great morning.